Hello, and welcome to our podcast that covers academic gossip in the field of anthropology. We are your hosts. I'm Tara. I'm a fifth-year archaeology PhD student.
And I'm Claire. I'm a fourth-year paleoanthropology PhD student.
And we have quite an episode for you for our first ever episode. We're covering Reiner Protsch, who was a German anthropologist. He had an attempt at embezzlement, which uncovered a whole web of lies, including both of his personal and academic life.
Yes, let's get into it. So, Reiner Protsch was a German anthropologist who specialized in radiocarbon dating of fossils, and we'll get into what radiocarbon dating means in just a second. But he did his PhD at UCLA in 1973. His advisor there also specialized in radiocarbon dating techniques, and right out of his PhD, he got a job at the University of Frankfurt as a professor. He was also the director of their Cultural Anthropology Institute and European Ethnology Institute there. And he had a 30-year career there that's about to come crashing down, as you'll see. He was a bit of a character, so multiple news outlets report that he was really into gold watches, luxury cars, fancy cigars.
Okay.
And originally, he was Reiner Protsch, and that's how we're going to refer to him in this podcast. But in 1991, he added on the surname von Zeiten, so Reiner Protsch von Zeiten, which was supposed to denote a connection to the Prussian aristocracy as a descendant of this high general in the Prussian army. So already there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. Imagine just like adding a name for the heck of it.
Right.
You know.
Just for funsies. So clearly there is some strange stuff going on, as we've alluded to. Before we get to that, I'm just going to tell everyone about the actual kind of significant fossil discoveries that Reiner Protsch claimed to be involved in. So one is the Hohnefersund man, and I apologize for butchering the German pronunciation probably. I did look up how to pronounce it, but I don't know if I'm getting the inflections quite right. But this was a skull fragment of modern Homo sapiens, but archaic. It was discovered in 1973 in Hamburg, Germany. So this is right around when he's finishing up his PhD. This was claimed to be the oldest anatomically modern Homo sapiens from Europe, and it showed morphological evidence of interbreeding with Neanderthals. So what that means is basically some kind of Neanderthal morphologies, some Homo sapiens morphologies. That's what made this fossil interesting. And Reiner Protsch dated it to coming from about 36,000 years ago. So should we do like a short explanation of radiocarbon dating now for anyone who's interested?
Yeah, okay. Refresh me, please.
Of course. So the gist of it is that all living organisms throughout their lifetime are absorbing carbon from the atmosphere. When you die, so we're all absorbing carbon from the atmosphere right now. When we die, this process stops. Atmospheric carbon, what we're absorbing, is mostly made up of carbon 12, 13, and 14. These are all isotopes, so they're all carbon, but just with a different number of neutrons in the nucleus. And what's special about carbon 14 is that it's radioactive, so it decays over time. The amount of carbon 14 is going to decay over time. So the atmospheric C14 that we're absorbing over our lifetime is going to start decaying after death. And this happens at known rate. So we can measure the amount of C14 left in organic remains, like bones, for example, to determine how old an organism was. So that's the gist of radiocarbon dating. That's how we get this date of 36,000 years ago for this fossil.
So basically, like, you take a bone, okay, take it out of the ground, and then you take out the carbon 14 and you measure how much that is, right?
Yep.
And then you like plug it into a formula and then it pops out like a date.
Yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Okay. Usually it's a mass spectrometer is the fancy machine that people use. I don't know how to run one. I wish I did. But that's a good like basic explanation of how it works.
Maybe side tangent. Do people do this on their own? Like today, I think a lot of people like send it off to a lab because of the mass spectrometer thing. But like back in the day, he was doing it himself because he was specialized in radiocarbon dating.
Yeah. So the University of Frankfurt had a mass spectrometer. I believe the articles that I read made it sound like Reiner Protsch was in charge of the mass spec lab. So he was in charge of the equipment and he was personally supposed to be running it. But yes, often today it's a really specialized machine. So people are sending their samples off to someone who's trained to work a mass spec and then they send the data back.
I see.
So there's a couple more fossils we'll get into. The second one is the Paderborn Sond man. This is another Homo sapiens skull fragment discovered in 1976. So again, still kind of early in Protsch's career. This is from gravel deposits from a region in northwestern Germany. This is dated to around 27,000 years ago, so a little younger than the previous fossil. But the publication of it also noted some morphological similarities to a lot younger populations. For example, like a very broad skull. And this is what we would typically see in something that's a lot younger than 27,000 years old. The discoverers also detailed what they thought could be possible trepanation of the skull. Tara, you're an archaeologist. Do you want to talk real quick about what that is?
Sure. Yeah. So I only know the basic gist of it. But trepanation is like this ancient technique where like they would drill a hole into people's skulls to relieve pressure. So sometimes like people would have a really bad brain injury or like trauma to the head and it's swelling a whole bunch, and so to release a lot of that pressure they would like drill a hole. Typically like when this person is obviously alive and well, they didn't have anesthesia back in the day, so it's quite a invasive procedure. Yikes. But it's kind of interesting because it's like they knew, you know, how the body worked to some degree and how to relieve people's pain, which is like the most important thing through a painful technique, sure, but in the long run.
That is just a side note, but it's interesting how like anesthesia knowledge lag behind this stuff, because it's like, oh my gosh, don't worry, we know exactly what you need, we got it, we're just gonna like drill a little hole into your skull,
don't
like
worry,
bite down on this rag.
Maybe they did have, I think like we don't quite know maybe what type of anesthesia type stuff that they had, like maybe there were certain types of plants that they used, or teas, or maybe it was just, you know, here's a leather strap and you're gonna bite down on it.
Right. That's an interesting point, because there's so much that's lost, unfortunately, to like the archaeological, the paleoanthropological record. And yeah, I think sometimes we don't give like ancient populations enough credit for their knowledge. So
that's true. They probably thought themselves like, this is quite an invasive procedure. I'm sorry to have to do this. This would be great to have, you know, no feeling in this area.
Right. Would love if I didn't have to drill a hole in your skull.
Yeah.
That's where we're at though. Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, he said that this had evidence of it. Is this like super early?
Yes. So this would be, and again, I'm not a specialist in this kind of thing, but from my reading, it seems that it would be very rare to find something like this in a specimen that was this old. So there's some kind of interesting things going on here. If they're true, it's like, wow, these morphologies, these behaviors are kind of popping up a lot earlier in the fossil record than we previously thought, although it does raise some suspicion because it doesn't go along with the kind of traditional thought and what we're usually seeing in these specimens. The last specimen I'll just go over quickly because it's not as exciting as the other ones, but it's the Bischoff Spire woman, another hominin cranium. This actually had facial bones and an upper jaw preserved, so there's a little more of the skeleton this time. It's found in Germany in the city of Spire in 1974, dated to around 21,000 years ago.
You know, I didn't even think about that because you said this one had facial bones and a jaw. The other ones were just skull fragments.
Yeah.
Like, how the heck do people say, like, this little piece of someone's body represents a whole nother species? Like,
yeah. And that's like kind of the $1 million question in paleontology, especially when we're working with species. And Homo sapiens is a little different because we do have so many fossils from early Homo sapiens. But, well, I guess at least in comparison to some other things, so many is probably being a little generous to what people who study other species would call so many. Yeah, this is like a huge debate in paleontology, is when we are allowed to take like a tooth or a fragment and call it a new species, or not even call it a new species, but determine the species from it. That part is a little less controversial, I guess, because like once you're trained in osteology, and I'm sure you know because you do zooarchaeology a lot, once you're trained in it, you're like surprised at how much you can identify a species from just a tiny little fragment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess if you have, a trained eye, I think the big thing though is like, especially in zooarchaeology, to train itself, like you have to have a good comparative collection. And so even just training your eye to be able to distinguish that requires you to look at a whole bunch of things that maybe a lot of people don't have access to.
Yeah, because I learned because I took a human osteology course, and not every university has that. So and not everyone has access to a course like that. So it is a very specialized skill. Another note on that is when we're talking about early Homo sapiens, we're seeing a lot of different morphologies. There's a lot more variation than what we see in modern Homo sapiens. So if we looked at my skull and your skull, there would be differences between them, but it would be pretty clear that we're looking at modern Homo sapiens when we're in, 300,000 to the early Holocene years ago. We're seeing a lot of morphological variation. So they're all the same species, but we've got a lot of different things going on, which makes it hard to say what is actually a early human and what's not.
Couldn't be me, to be honest. It's like that same thing of like the lumpers and splitters debates. I feel like I always lean more on the lumper side. I'm like, I'm not gonna create a new category for this. I think it comes down to organization. It's like, if I have to make a new box or a new label for some one piece of item, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna put it in with something similar first before I do that.
Yeah, totally. Like someone else can come along years from now and decide differently if they want, but
yeah.
Okay, so getting back into our story, this is all kind of suspicious because we're seeing, like we've said, these kind of strange things that we're not expecting from fossils of this age. At this point in the 1970s, scientists thought the earliest Homo sapiens in Europe were about 30 to 35,000 years old, starting with Cro-Magnon man in France. So these fossils, the first one, the Hannoversund man, kind of repositions the first humans in Europe as German and not French. And then these other two fossils are kind of adding to this suite of evidence that we've got a lot of people living in what would become Germany very early on. So because of all this, people kept asking to see his data. This is a big thing in paleoanthropology and any science. If someone's making claims that kind of go against the status quo, people are going to want to check your work.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read a quote from Ulrich Brandt, who was the chair of the University of Frankfurt investigative panel that eventually was investigating Reiner Protsch. And he says, quote, "He always had an excuse. If people asked to see the data, he would say it had been stolen or there had been a fire and it was too much effort for people to follow up on. They didn't realize he was doing it all the time." End quote.
Wow.
So people are asking to see his data and he's just kind of giving them the runaround.
Imagine just like putting that in a research article and say, like, I swear this data that I'm reporting on was here. My dog ate it.
Yeah.
So
like, I have a girlfriend, she just goes to a different school. It's also like, there was a fire. Like, imagine if I'm like, "Hey Tara, how's your research going?" You're like, "Oh my god, I have like really cool results," but there like was a fire.
Yeah. Well, and also like a fire that only burnt that up, then like didn't make news that like a whole lab exploded or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't hear about that. I am one floor above you."
Right.
But guess it just missed me.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, like I've heard this time and time again that like people just won't let other people see their data. And to some extent, I think like their reasoning makes a little sense for publishing purposes. Like,
yeah,
we need to write this up and it's like proprietary or what have you. But for the sake of science, that's the whole point of science. Like that's part of the scientific method. It needs to be like replicated at the end to verify all of this makes sense.
Exactly. And this is a big problem in paleoanthropology specifically. A lot of people have written about this, but there's kind of this, I don't know, double-edged sword or debate as to when it's appropriate to share data about your fossils, because finding an early human fossil is career building for people. And so they want to be able to take their time in coming to conclusions about it. But on the other hand, if that takes, 10 years and people know there's this really important fossil out there and they don't have access to it, people can view it as stalling the science. On the other hand, if you share your information too early, if you're the the finder, then you kind of lose some ownership over publishing on it. And you also rightfully want to take your time before you start making any outrageous claims.
Yeah, before you report that this is an entirely new specimen or new species, and like, actually, like, did you not see this ridge in the skull? That's clearly the same species
Right.
as this other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was seeing, like, especially when you like do journal submissions nowadays, they ask you like, are you posting your data somewhere, or are you hosting it on, Open Science or something like that? So I think that's like a new thing that science and journals are doing, that are trying to like push this open data movement, and people are following it. I think in archaeology we have like the TDAR, the digital archaeological record. I don't know what the T stands for. I forgot.
Yeah.
But you can just upload your data. You can just upload your data set on it, and people can view it however you want. And also with the DAX, the Digital Archaeological Archive for Comparative Slavery, another great database that people can put like plantation and like enslavement related archaeological context on there. But I didn't think about too how with paleoanthro, a lot of, like you said, is like career building, that this like one species is like going to be tied to your name forever, and it's going to be like the thing that you're known for. And also crazy, back to the story, that this guy did this right out of a PhD.
Right?
He's like,
I'm like, slow down. You have like plenty of time to become a fraud. Like, and a lot of the database thing you say is interesting, because in paleoanthropology, a lot of what we're pushing towards is sharing 3D scans or CT scans of fossils, because the other thing is, a lot of these are found like in East Africa and stored in the Kenyan National Museums, the Ethiopian National Museums. Not everyone can just fly there and take a look at Lucy on a Tuesday. So we've got Morphosource, which is what a lot of people in my field use to upload fossil data. And then, you can like 3D print them if the permissions allow for that, and then take a look at it on your own. You can do cool stuff digitally with it. And that's becoming kind of a big thing now. Like you said, a lot of journals are requiring more open data practices, which I think is a good thing for the field.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how many people actually review, well, at least in archaeology, how many people actually review other people's collections to make sure that everyone like categorized it and analyzed it correctly. I feel like the stakes aren't as high, because it's like, these people ate off of imported tableware, and that says something about our broader economic networks, versus like, there's probably a lot of review happening in paleoanthro. Like, let me see about this. Yeah,
there's a ton of scrutiny over single fossils, but once we get into, like you said, I guess the equivalent in paleontology or paleoanthropology would be like faunal collections found in association with hominin fossils. We've got the paleobiology database, which is huge, and that's like an attempt to map all fossil occurrences. So there's data from all over the world on like mammals and reptiles, and we've got hominins in there. Obviously there are mammals too, but it's hard to keep up a database like that, because you can't scrutinize every single thing that comes in. But it is a really valuable resource. I've used it before for projects. I think we're moving towards much better data collection, data storing, data sharing practices, but we're still kind of in infancy in that, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Alrighty, so we've talked about these fossils, given you a little bit of information about Reiner Protsch. Here's where things start finally coming to light. So these problems started in March 2004, which is way after kind of the start of this man's career. But Protsch was actually investigated for allegations of trying to sell the University of Frankfurt's collection of 278 chimpanzee skulls to a private collector in the US for $70,000, which would have been wired to his personal bank account.
What?
Yeah.
Who would want that?
It's crazy. I know, I'm like, 278, you need that many.
Yeah. What are they doing? Like, they're making their own, like, catacomb or something? Like,
yeah. Just like, come down to my basement, I've got this really cool project.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Also, how much is that per skull? 70,000 divided by 278.
Good question.
$250 per skull.
That's kind of cheap for a chimp skull, honestly. Yeah. So Protsch tried to claim that at least some of the skulls were part of his own private collection, so therefore he would have had the right to sell them. But like chimps are a protected species. They're endangered. This is per both Germany's Federal Nature Conservation Act and the U.S. Endangered Species Act. So this sale would have violated both German and U.S. federal laws.
The heck?
Yeah. So this is what launched an official investigation by the University of Frankfurt. And they have the Commission for Dealing with Academic Misconduct, which, not to shade them, but I think is kind of a funny name. Like, yeah. I'm going to deal with you.
Yeah. Give you a good talking to.
Right.
About your misconduct.
They found that Protsch went so far as to forge a purchase receipt that showed the chimp skulls were sold to him by a scientist who conveniently at the time of this investigation had passed away.
Wow. So another case where the fire got our papers again.
Like, once again. Yeah. I'm sensing a little bit of a pattern here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're onto something or not with that. Yeah. So that's not the only thing they found. This gets kind of crazy. So the University of Frankfurt, I'm just going to start calling it the U of F. I know that's University of Florida, right? Mm-hmm. Your alma mater. Will you allow me to?
Sure, for this time.
Okay, thank you. You're so generous. So the U of F, their committee met 10 times with at least a dozen witnesses, at which point a lot more misconduct came to light. And this goes back about 20 years. Protsch declined to appear before the panel, but he did resign from his position at the university before the results of the inquiry were publicized.
Okay, so he knew. He was caught in something.
Like, I think I'm donezo. So it turns out researchers actually had problems with his work as early as 1984. And so there's this professor at U of F, Thomas Terberger. He sent some of Protsch's fossils to the radiocarbon accelerator unit at Oxford, and they confirmed that Protsch had falsified the actual dates of the fossils.
Wow.
Protsch had come back and claimed that Oxford's work was wrong and his work was correct, of course. So this new data from Oxford showed that the Hannoverson man was actually only about 7,500 years old.
Wow.
Paderborn Sand was actually about 238 years old, and Bischof Spire was actually about 3,000 years old.
Wow. Okay, so Paderborn Sand is actually like a historic man.
Yeah.
So part of, let's see, 1975 minus 238. Okay, 1737. I don't know what's happening in Germany at 1737, but
me neither.
Probably a soldier or something. We're kind of in like colonizations. I really don't know what's happening in Germany during the American Revolution.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show it's a completely different field now. Like, in order to accurately interpret this skull, we need a historian to tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
And remember, this is the skull that claimed to have the possible trepanation, that drilling. Yeah. I'm interested, I don't know if any more information, if people have kind of done a reanalysis of that skull, but I'd be interested to see what the actual interpretation, maybe more accurate interpretation of that marking on the skull is.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
So again, this is just a problem that arises from no one could see his data for a long time, except for, and this is curious because this professor was able to send these fossils out that claimed differently a long time ago. So a lot of this seems like, I wonder what his like reputation around the department was. Like, what was it more just like, oh, he's just kind of a scoundrel, like or like
who
that
needs
guy
dealing with?
Yeah, or was it like, I can't imagine that his reputation amongst his colleagues was great, because at least some of them knew that he was acting up, to say the least.
Yeah. Wait, so they knew about this part at least since 1980s.
Right.
Wow.
I think that Protsch's explanation was that the radiocarbon dating unit at Oxford had sampled a part of the skull, and there's an actual word for this that I'm forgetting, but it's like they had sampled part that was maybe covered in like a patina. It's not the right word, but kind of the equivalent of that in osteology terms. So what they were actually sampling was like residue or something that was much younger. That's why they're getting these younger dates. So he's always conveniently got an excuse.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, if you can just blame other people for not doing the method right, then you could cover yourself. And this other guy was just kind of like, okay, I'll just leave it at that. Not worth my time to do another, sampling to show that you're definitely not right.
I guess so, but like imagine how vindicated he felt when all these news reports started coming out.
Yeah.
It's like when you kind of don't like someone and your friend is finally like, hey, like, how do you feel about Sarah? And you get that rush of adrenaline. Yeah. Like, I knew from the start.
Mm-hmm. It all just comes pouring out. Well, so these specimens that he found too, okay, so they're definitely not early Homo sapiens found in Germany, which was like the whole thing that like, okay, we're not looking at France anymore, we're looking at Germany, which doesn't even make sense, honestly, if thinking about migration out of Africa. Like, France is more south. You need to go through France to go to Germany.
Right.
They just jumped over.
Like, as if they got to Germany and they were like, yeah, I just like have good vibes here. Right. Like,
let's just stay here forever. But all that sounds really similar to Nazi archaeology. Like, I'm not trying to equate this guy who is in the 70s, a German archaeologist in the 70s and 90s, to, automatically being associated with the Nazi party. But, like, they had the whole thing in the, like, leading up to the World Wars about how they're, like, trying to situate Germany as the pinnacle of human civilization.
Yep.
And so if taking that even farther to, like, the pinnacle of all humanity and human evolution, like, that's even something else. They tried to use archaeology as, like, a way to show how Germans were, like, always really great and strong, and they, like, respected their leaders very well. They tried to, like, also distance themselves, or, like, tried to make themselves a little bit more special than the Greeks and the Romans. Like, they understood that Greek and Romans were, like, the pinnacle of modern science at the time.
Right. Every archaeology bro's, like, dream.
Right. Yeah. When did you think of the Roman Empire this morning? Like, Germany was full of a bunch of, like, tribes, I think, at the time that were, in Nazi terms, more primitive than the Greeks and Romans. So they tried to, like, show just how much those values really mattered, even though they weren't as technically logically advanced at the time. But they came up with this whole thing about how Greeks and Romans were tainted by like mingling with other races of people, which is not in any biological terms like an actual race of people.
Right.
And this diminished what they called their, like, cultural creativity. Like, they reached this, like, awesome pinnacle of math and science, but that's all they could probably do. That's why they collapsed, because they interbred too much with other people. Meanwhile, in Germany, they could, like, trace their cultural development to be, like, the super racially pure group of people. And then they took that even a step further. Not only are we the best, but then it's up to us to save civilization. We are the most culturally creative. We're going to create the next best thing. It's up to us to make sure that we're racially pure so that we can spread this all over the world and save humanity. So, yeah, it gets pretty crazy. And to be honest, this isn't a lot different than what other, like, anthropology is happening at the time. Like, late 1800s, 1900s, we're still getting out of slavery. We're in the Jim Crow area where we're still having these ideas of racial superiority.
Yeah.
But they're tying this to nationalism on a level that we haven't seen before. Yeah. So it was just, like, tying that together with what Protsch is doing by saying they're so racially pure. We started here out of Africa, like, right away. We skipped over France. We skipped over Eastern Europe. We came straight to Germany, and we've been here ever since. So we're the OG humans, really.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say this, because Reiner Protsch turns out to have more legitimate connections to Nazis.
What?
then even this would make it seem.
Oh no.
It seems like he really did have an agenda here. So I have a list of things that came to light during the commission's investigation, and it's like 10 bullet points long.
Okay.
But just to follow up on the Nazi stuff real quick. So remember how Protsch claimed this connection to the Prussian aristocracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not Reiner Protsch, he's Reiner Protsch von Zeiten.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lie.
Yes. That seems legit.
Right, like, are we surprised that... So he's got this whole thing where over the years, he once claimed to be Jewish. At another point, he claimed to have been raised by an African-American family in the U.S. At another point, he told a colleague that Hermann Göring, the commander of the Nazi Party Air Force, was his godfather. Which, I'm like, if that was true, you could not waterboard that information out of me.
Yeah.
Today, Reiner's brother, Dieter, who was interviewed, claims they're not related to Hans. Hans is the Prussian aristocrat.
Okay.
And actual descendants of that line have been pushing for Reiner to provide proof of his relationship. Once again, it's like my dog ate my homework.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the kicker. In actuality, Protsch was born in Berlin in 1939 to Wilhelm Protsch, who was in fact a Nazi Party member.
Mm.
Yep.
There you go.
There we have it, folks. This also appears to be connected to the fact that Protsch ordered thousands of historical documents stored at the University of Frankfurt that related to Nazi history to be shredded.
If, you know, okay, so you're actually associated with the Nazi Party. Okay, you can't change that history, sure. You kind of want to because you're shredding all the documents, but then you go around and tell someone that actually, like, I'm like kind of connected. It's like he was like floating the idea past someone to see how they would respond. Like, actually, my godfather was the commander of the Nazi Party Air Force. And then they're like, oh, and he's like, yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, oh my gosh, no, I was just being silly. Also, it's just funny because as if, like, shredding these documents was gonna make the Nazis look better. Like, you know, I thought they were bad, but, like, I can't find some of these documents, so I just don't know.
Yeah, we'll never know what World War II really was about.
Right.
All the documents are gone.
Tried. Yep, you almost got us. Yeah, so this is not the only thing. And this is also kind of related to the Nazi stuff, but it's just strange. So Protsch had claimed to his students that he had personally examined the bones of both Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun, who was Hitler's wife. I'm not quite sure what the motive was there, like trying to appear cool.
Yeah, like a bragging thing.
Right. It's just really an interesting claim to make. He also bragged about allegedly owning property in New York, Florida, and California, where he would hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Steffi Graf, who was a German professional tennis player.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It just seems like he had a big personality, a lot of posturing, like, I'm hanging out with celebrities, I own a Porsche, I smoke Cuban cigars.
Right. I looked at Hitler's bones.
One of these things is not like the others.
Which, like, also, his students are at the University of Frankfurt as well. Like, he wasn't teaching it anywhere else, right?
Correct, as far as I know.
So I don't know, again, what Germany and, like, German culture is at this point, but I don't think they like that either. They're not. That's not a bragging thing to talk about,
right? Like, it's, you know, the one fact I hear all the time is that it's super restricted and controlled in Germany. Like, any allusions to the Nazi Party.
I don't know. Maybe he was doing it like kind of like a weird science thing, like, you know, like how some people claim to have held the brain of serial killers or something like that.
Yeah. And how, like, Walt Disney's head is in a jar in the back rooms or whatever. Yeah. Some other things, Protsch had stolen some human skulls from the University of Frankfurt's osteology collection. he sold them to his friends and also some local dentists, I guess, to practice on.
What? That's what school was for.
Yeah.
What the heck? Also, who are these other randos buying skulls?
I know. It's just, and this is a tangent, but this is a whole thing today that kind of irks me as an anthropologist, as an osteologist, is, you know, I have a bone collection. You can see it right behind me. I've got a pig skull right here. This is a bison jaw. But some collectors, you know, having a human bone in your collection is a big ticket item that I personally disagree with, because a lot of times, most of the time, you really have no idea anything about the person the bone is coming from. It probably was not, it did not end up in your collection consensually.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a whole, you know, I'll step off my soapbox, but people like to collect human bones. There's a market out there for it.
I mean, I see the oddity in it, and like how cool it's cool because it's so on edge, or like
macabre.
Edgy. Aside from it being disrespectful to people you don't even know who it could be related to, if it's your grandpa, okay,
fine.
Weird, but okay.
In your curio cabinet.
But once it gets to be like you don't have any idea who it is and you don't care, that's so disrespectful. But on the other hand, aren't you scared of being like haunted? Yeah. Like, this is someone's body. If any object of this person is going to be haunted, it's going to be part of their body. Like,
totally.
You're just like, I will pay $150 for this skull or what have you.
It's just crazy.
Also, the dentist, sure, like it could be a practice thing, but like you have a lot of tissue that you have to work around as a dentist as well. It's not just straight bone.
Right. That's what I was thinking as well. Like, in what way is it actually helpful at all?
They just have it maybe in their welcome desk, like, welcome, and like, here's your teeth.
Yeah.
They show you. I don't know. You know, I guess that makes me wonder, because you go to the dentist now, they have like the clay or like the sculpture of the teeth. Like, it's not real, it's all plastic.
Right.
Did back in the day, not that this was super back in the day, but I'm thinking like 1930s or so dentistry, did they probably have like a human skull diagram? Like, here, if you want to look at this is your molar, and this one has a cavity in it, and what we're going to do, we're going to root canal it, drill it to the base of your jaw, as you see in this profile.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, when I took human gross anatomy, we had a lot of actual human bones in the lab that were sliced in different ways to show the different features of the bones. So, you know, maybe these dentists were just like, they just wanted to educate.
Right. Well, I guess I think it goes back to what you said, though. Like, you have to know where it comes from.
Right.
To like, if this person donated their body to science, then okay, like, slice it up however you want. Students can touch it.
So, some other stuff, and this part is a little unclear because I was trying to translate the story from a German newspaper online. But Protsch had apparently been falsely claiming to have a second doctorate, but then he actually attempted that second doctorate at a university in Vienna in the 90s. In 1996, he submitted his second doctoral thesis, where he falsely claimed that an early primate specimen was from Switzerland when it was actually from France, which I think it's hilarious that he chose Switzerland and not Germany this time, but he's still, like, France is still catching strays.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I don't care, I just hate France.
Maybe that's it. He just has an anti-France agenda.
Yeah. In 1997, he was under suspicion from an academic director at Vienna for producing a thesis that was total, quote, nonsense. But a witness reported to the German police. So apparently the police were involved. I'm not quite sure, but this witness reported that Protsch had gifted a rare cave bear fossil to a colleague at Vienna in exchange for passing his thesis. So this is like this guy's MO. He's like, first of all, I hate you, France. Second of all, I'm just going to slip you a bone under the table.
Right.
And you're going to go along with whatever I want.
He just has bones to spare.
At least he's consistent.
Sure, yeah. He has Yeah, he has a motive. He has a means of how he does his crime.
Right.
What is a cave bear? Just like a bear that's from a cave?
Yes. So this is in reference to a specific species of bear from the Pleistocene, so the Ice Age. I believe they have the name cave bear because I guess I don't know, maybe it was originally found in a cave or if they were known for kind of habitating in caves. But it was very large, kind of charismatic megafauna. So another one of those kinds of fossils that is a high ticket item in someone's collection.
An old bear.
Yeah.
Poor old bear.
Yeah.
Also, why do you need a second doctorate?
Right. So again, this part is unclear to me because I think the translation was not quite it wasn't all making sense to me. But there was some detail about his UCLA PhD not being considered valid in Germany, but that doesn't make any sense to me because a PhD from UCLA is a PhD from UCLA no matter where you are. Mm-hmm. It's not like the kind of thing like if you're transferring universities, a course credit doesn't transfer over. Like this is a conferred degree.
Yeah.
So I'm also not quite sure what was going on there. Something was going on there though. Something weird. Ultimately, 17 criminal charges were brought against Protsch. So this is actual criminal charges, not just kind of a slap on the wrist by the university. This included fraud, theft, and embezzlement. And part of the theft charge actually was stealing books from the U of F library. So he was like scratching out the library information and adding his own kind of stamp of ownership.
Why
do you
need that?
This to me really speaks to the I don't know, maybe kleptomania or pathological liar aspect of this all, because it's like the whole point of library books is that they're free.
Right.
You don't need to steal them. They're free.
And if he wanted his own copy, you have gold watches, you have Cuban cigars, you have 3 houses in California, Florida, and wherever. Ask Arnold to get you a book.
Yeah, ask that you want. So, crazy end to the story. In 2009, many, many years after his first kind of transgressions occurred, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. The cherry on top of this all is that reportedly during the verdict, as it was being read, in the parking lot, Protsch's car was being towed for illegally parking in a handicap spot. Which is really just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Cherry on top. Representative of the entire situation.
That wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, yeah.
Yeah.
I can get away with this one last time.
I know. He's like, I gotta get the last laugh in here.
Right. Well, hold on. I guess he's out now. So maybe he's got more to come. Yeah.
We can't discount him. It seems like this guy really cannot help doing whatever he's doing. And I mean that not in the Nazi stuff, because that's obviously a choice, a very destructive choice, but just kind of in the realm of the lying and the stealing. That just seems like he cannot help it. It's just pathological.
Also, 18 months, I guess that seems fair. I don't know anything about criminal sentencing. There are 17 total charges. Just given how long this has occurred, it seems short. It also seems long at the same time.
Yeah.
I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's you did this for so many years. What is 18 months of your life being locked up in a box going to do? It's not as some type of rehab of your mind where you're gonna think about it really hard, because
right, yeah,
you've done this for decades.
And another thing is I don't think either of us are really familiar with the German criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Because in the US we have mandatory maximum or minimum sentencing and things like that. Our prisons here are a lot different, I think, than prisons in Europe. So I'm not sure what their system is like. I'm not sure what the right answer is here. Not to get into incarceration and that kind of stuff, because I know we both have a lot of opinions on that. But resigning from the university, that seems obviously yes. I just don't know how a person like this really, I don't know, go to therapy.
Yeah. maybe that's it. Like mandatory therapy
Yeah.
for life. And community service. Add that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, kind of going back to the fossils that Protsch falsely claimed were a lot older than they were, these were fortunately not really considered to be super important to paleoanthropology. This is according to Chris Stringer, who's a very respected British anthropologist. So, this did maybe give us a false notion for a little while, but it wasn't kind of the, I guess, gotcha that Protsch wanted it to be.
Yeah. Well, so what do we actually know about, like, that part of human evolution and migration that Protsch was, like, claiming to have found the answer to?
Great question. So this story has been kind of used as evidence that scientists are liars. When I was doing a lot of the research for this episode, I was finding a lot of articles on websites that, were kind of fringe blogs or alternate news sources. And clearly this was like, they're doing the thing that they always do of cherry picking stories that conform to their agenda, that scientists are liars and it's a huge big conspiracy. But we do have like actual real evidence of the history of Homo sapiens in Europe. Just because these 3 fossils we now have a better idea of what they actually were doesn't mean we don't have a ton of other data. So humans first evolved in Africa. It's unclear exactly where, but there were also multiple waves of dispersal out of Africa. The earliest of those currently dates to around 54,000 years ago, in France. France got the last laugh. Sorry, Reiner. But the earliest kind of sustained settlements are around 45,000 years ago in Eastern Europe, but also Eastern Germany. These dispersals overlap with Neanderthal occupations and kind of populations. So there's interbreeding and intermixing happening, and studies using ancient DNA have really helped us get a better picture of what this looks like. So Svante Pääbo in 2022 actually won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for sequencing the Neanderthal genome. That was a big step. And now, if you or any of the listeners have taken one of those like 23andMe tests or Ancestry.com tests, you might get a result that's like, you have this percentage of Neanderthal DNA. And that's because a long, long time ago, we were interbreeding with Neanderthals, and now some genes we know that are in our genome today originally came from Neanderthal populations a long time ago.
Are great to the 99th degree relatives, yes.
Yeah, it was a real love story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always an interesting topic. Yeah, especially with how ancient DNA has helped like make this a for sure thing that this did happen, and the public now knows about it too.
Yeah.
That how did those interactions go? Like are there different groups, or they're probably like maybe one group together and then they're like, hey, you're cute. Let's link up.
Saw you from across the fire pit. I really liked that like story you were telling earlier about the cave bear.
Right.
Want to come back to my cave?
You're like, I shouldn't do this. This is like not normal, but
that's like forbidden love.
Right.
Oh my god, what are we doing?
Yeah, and then here we are.
Here we are. It is really interesting to think about how these interactions would have gone. Because again, like I said earlier, there's so much that's lost to the paleoanthropological record, and a lot of that is like behavioral. We can make assumptions on what past behavior looked like based on human behavior today, based on like other non-human primate behavior, but a lot of it we just kind of have to make educated guesses about. It's something I think about all the time, honestly. I think it's just fun to kind of think about what life might have been like back then.
Yeah, like honestly, I think about that a lot with how today a lot of people, they live to work. And granted, back in the day, your working is your living. Like you have to find ways to make food and to like gather supplies. But also like you're in community together and
Yeah.
doing all these things for the sake of survival together.
No, I think about that all the time. Yeah, life used to be so different, and the reality that we're living in today is really something we created.
Yeah, it's all created. Yeah, that's, I think, the biggest thing. It's like back in the day, we're focused on surviving, we're focused on moving around. We said, this climate's great. What if we went a little bit over here? And what if we looked over there? Life is awesome. Granted, people sometimes get eaten by things. Not good.
Look, it happens.
And
don't be
we
a
didn't
complainer.
Right. Yeah, it's just life. It's just life. We didn't have as much of a life expectancy, but I'm sure their lives were full of meaning nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely.
So ultimately, the lesson of this is like, you can get in serious trouble for lying. Like you said, like, people are using this story to show that like scientists are liars, but there are real consequences to some of these things. Not only like do we have our institutions keeping us in check, where we have commissions on dealing with academic misconduct, but also criminally punishable. You could get in trouble for lying about having another PhD, or like or saying that you're a certain person and you're not. I looked up what the definition of fraud was, and it was like, if you like fake any part of your identity in order to get something in return.
Which is a large part of Protsch's identity, it seems. And, I can understand how the fact that this wasn't kind of formally caught or punished for so many years is raising red flags to folks who might be skeptical. But it also seems like this was kind of like the university's best kept secret. Like, people there at least knew what was going on to some degree. And the kind of treatment of the outcome of this is like a gotcha is funny to me, because I'm like, well, he did go to jail. So, like, he did lie, and there are people that lie everywhere in every field. But this guy did go to jail. And we have a lot of people talking about his work and why it was wrong. Yeah,
that's the important part. The peer-reviewed portion of it all.
Yes, totally.
All right. Well, thank you, Claire, for this, like, whirlwind of a first episode.
You're so welcome.
I hope to, one day accomplish maybe just a portion of what Protsch did in his lifetime. For real, though. And who knows? Yeah, maybe after we get done with our PhDs, we'll just instantly make that big discovery.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. So, all right. Thank you all for joining our first episode.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Stay tuned for our next one, and we'll have more gossip to share with you.
Bye.
Bye.
What's a good, like, famous last name to add?
We don't know any famous people.
No. Oh, well. We can cut that part out.
Yeah, we'll cut that part out. Wait, this is going to sound bad. Who is the... Jane Goodall. There we go. I don't know. It just seemed like a little bit more of a meaning, besides you're going to this 9 to 5 where you, like, are just a cog in the machine and don't really give a shit about... Sorry, do we curse on here?
I know, I was thinking that, because I was like, I wanted to be like, Protsch said, fuck France, but